the hell was that? What the hell? The hell is that? Oh, no, Bray Wyatt. Ah, fuck you, Mikey. This fell out. I'll pick up Michael later. Maybe not. I don't know. Who cares? Alright, so going into this, I heard things. I heard things. But I heard things. I also heard things. Did you know I heard things? But anyway, I heard things. That's the bottom line here. About this movie. One of the worst sequels ever made. It's terrible. Bad movie. And I'm thinking, oh, it's bad because it's one of those weird, terrible sequels that goes way too far. And I've heard about the locusts. I've heard about the psychic stuff. I've heard about stuff. James Earl Jones and a weird tribal uniform. Fine. But what I was not prepared for was how boring this movie gets in the middle of it. It starts out weird and fucking messed up. And then, okay. And then, middle of this movie, we follow Lamont, and it just gets boring as he searches for Kokumo. And then finally something happens at the end of the movie that makes it go all insane. But this is what they said was the sequel to The Exorcist. Someone saw the script and said, yes, make this movie. Somebody said yes to this script. Now, it was the 70s, so, yes! It was probably what happened. So, how do I explain this? First of all, no one wanted to make a sequel to The Exorcist. William Friedkin, he was out, right? William Peter Blatty, see ya. He didn't want to write this. He didn't want to do this. He did end up writing a sequel, Legion, which became Exorcist 3. Its own set of problems. And then you had actors. The studio was still going to go ahead with it. Right? Linda Blair agreed to return as long as she didn't have to wear the prosthetics and the makeups and stuff. So they had a double for that. And Kitty Wynn, who played the nursemaid Sharon, she came back. Max von Sydow also has a cameo in this film. And as I mentioned in my last review, I was confused as to why it was a younger version on there. Because it's in flashbacks to when he was younger. So, there's that. But they could not get anyone else back. Ellen Burstyn said no. She said fuck no. She flat out refused. Right? I don't know if they tried to get Jason Miller back, but that wouldn't make any sense anyway, unless he had flashbacks, which also wouldn't make any sense. And the actor who played Father Dyer also said no, which means they had to create an entirely new character, Father Lamont. Yes. Richard... I can't think of his name. Richard Burton's character of Father Lamont is an original creation that was supposed to be Father Dyer, but they changed it. And now I know that information, it makes a lot of sense why the Vatican would send Father Dyer to do this. He has a connection to Reagan, but they had to change things and invent an entirely new character for this movie. Reagan is no longer with her mother. Her mother said, no, I'm done. Sharon is still around, but she's sort of watching over Reagan. Reagan is living in this institute for kids that are conflicted, stuff's wrong with them, stuff like that. And she's managed by this woman who has kids of her own, but says she can't spend time with them, I don't remember this woman's name. Okay? It's Nurse Ratched from Home Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, so I'll be referring to her as Nurse Ratched. Okay? That's all I can remember. So Nurse Ratched. Just remember that. Okay. So the Vatican sends out Father, this is the plot, and I'll get into the whole thing. Father, no. The Vatican sends out Father Lamont to prove that the devil exists because Father Marin was insisting that they did. So he's got to prove that it exists or prove that it doesn't exist. I got that it doesn't exist. Other people say it does. I don't know. Whatever. You got to prove something. So he goes to see Reagan, and this leads to to several investigations into finding out not only if Reagan remembers anything, which she claims to not, and then later says she does. I'm assuming that she ends up getting to remember back at some point. Maybe she did remember and just says she didn't. I don't know. The scene at the end of the first one where she kisses Father Dyer on the cheek makes you think she does because she saw his what do you call this? What do you call that thing? This thing here. This thing. Cuff. No, that's the cuff. I don't know. But anyway. So maybe she knows. I don't know. And this leads to Africa and a search into Marin's past and an exorcism he did with an African man named Kokumo, James Earl Jones, and then locusts for some reason. Now, I wrongfully said in my review of the first one that Pazuzu was the demon of snakes, serpents. No, that's Valak. I was thinking of Valak from the Conjuring movies. That's the serpent. That's what it is. I don't know why I thought that was Pazuzu, but Locust makes sense. I mean, the statue has wings, but I don't know if Locust was. I don't know. So to kick off this movie, if you want to call it that, before I get to that though, I want to say that William Friedkin actually went to a screening of this, sat for 5 minutes, and then left. And then, at a screening, after the movie was done, somebody, I don't know if it was William Peter Blatty or somebody, is like, people who gave this film, who made this film, are in this room, and they ran out of there so they didn't get chased. Because they knew the shit that they put on that screen. Now, I don't think it's terrible quality-wise. They threw a lot of stuff at the wall to see if it stuck, and it didn't. But my biggest problem with this is that it gets boring in the middle of this film. It starts off interesting. You're trying to figure out what's going on. And then when Father Lamont starts to investigate Kokumo, it slows the fuck down as he's just walking through places, trying to find Kokumo, asking many people, and it's like, this movie's just about 2 hours long, and if you got a half-hour runtime out of this, it would have worked. Now, I also said that the first one was too long, but I think that it justifies the runtime. It's a nice slow burn, and it works. This, no, cut a chunk out. Put it down to an hour and a half. His journey to find Kokumo shouldn't take that long. It just... Alright, so let's go ahead and start this off. And after watching the first 5 minutes, I understand why we weren't freaking left. We started in South America. I should do this. We start in South America. What? South America. We start in South America. And Father Lamont is investigating some kind of possession of this woman. This Hispanic woman in South America, of course. And she sets herself on fire, and it's quite obviously a dummy just going until jump cut of it's on fire, like burnt up. Yeah, I don't know what this was supposed to be. But before she set herself on fire, She's speaking in Spanish, like, ¿por qué? ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué? And then she translates herself, but she translates it wrong. She says, why me? ¿Por qué? Is but why. That's what por qué means. But why? So the fact that she translates to why me means that whoever wrote this has no fucking idea how to speak Spanish. Anyway. Because me in Spanish is me. Mi casa es su casa. Hello. Anyway. After this, that's when he goes to the Vatican and he gets his mission to find out if Father Mary was telling the truth. Jump cut, snap right to Reagan at this institute, tap dancing for some reason. Apparently Linda Blair didn't like that, but she's tap dancing for some reason. And she's in this institute, and I need to talk about something. I'm not exactly sure where in the film it happens, but I need to talk about something that kind of bugged me. All right. Dana Plato plays this autistic girl that Reagan talks to. For some reason, they think an accurate portrayal of someone with autism is that they can't speak. I've never met anyone with autism who can't speak. The issue is not that we can't speak, is that we have a problem talking to people we don't know. That is the issue. We are hidden, closed. You know, we are in our own little thing. You come mess with us, it makes us freak out. At least my experience with myself and my son, too. He's a little bit less than I was, but if we do not know, as an autistic person, if I do not know you, I'm not going to talk to you right away. Let me get to know you first, you know. It's one of those things. And it could take a while. It could be, you know. But this fucking movie says, no, if you're autistic, you can't talk. That is complete and total bullshit. Now, I didn't look this up. So maybe it's a version of autism. But I have never come across that version of autism ever. Where you just can't talk. And then Reagan uses her psychic powers, we'll get to that, to help her talk. And they tout it, they say it's some miracle. Oh, she can talk. I'm going to show your father, she can talk. I'm just like, the fuck, what, why? Why is this the portrayal of autism? You know, I harped on the portrayal of autism in The Predator. Because of Jacob Tremblay's portrayal of it, where a loud noise being go like this. And I harped on it, saying that's not how it works. But then I actually experienced that from all places, my niece, who squealed so loud it caused me to do this. And that's when I realized, oh, shit. Okay, that is a thing. I mean, it's one of those things, it's a sensory thing. Something so loud that it causes you to do this and bend down. It overloads your senses. My sense is sense of an autistic person because we're sensitive, right? So, yeah, I just don't like the portrayal of. So maybe The Predator was more on the nose than this movie. I've never had any experience with. Just can't talk. I don't know, but. So Reagan is in this institute. She's with this doctor, Nurse Ratched. I'm going to call her that because I don't remember her character's name. And Father Lamont comes to visit. And they do this machine that flashes light in your face. And you kind of connect on a mental plane or something. And this gives Father Lamont images of James Earl Jones and Locust and shit. Because Reagan was inhabited by Pazuzu, so she has Pazuzu's memories inside there somewhere. And it connects to Father Merrin, who we see in flashbacks, who dealt with Pazuzu before, which we kind of got a feeling he had because of the picture. And by the way, this is the movie that names it Pazuzu. And I don't think it's named Pazuzu in any other film, because this film is considered non-canon to the rest of the movies. So I don't know if they mention it in the prequels or not. But this is a movie that gives it the name Pazuzu, which everyone calls that anyway because it's well known. Right? So, there's some hints that she knows what's going on, but it's not entirely sure. But Father Lamont decides to go investigating and makes his way to Africa, where he tries to track down Kokumo. And this is where it takes forever to get there, because he's going through, he has a translator talking to someone from Africa. At one point, he's talking to someone in French in Africa for some reason. Maybe they're Haitian. I know that Haitians speak French. So maybe they're Haitian. I don't know, but it's very confusing and boring. And eventually he finds Kokumo. And the fact that I had seen pictures of James Earl Jones in his little suit thing, his little Aboriginal suit, and he's just in a business suit, man, talking normal, talking about the goddamn locusts. And see if this sounds familiar to you. He has a female locust, a good locust, that he's going to try to introduce to the other locusts and hopefully change them to be good locusts so that they don't cause panic and hate. Yeah. Jurassic World Dominion stole from the Exorcist too. I mean, I don't think that many people saw this movie, so they're not going to catch that. But as soon as I heard that, I'm like, wait a minute, wasn't that what they did in Jurassic World: The Dominion? Verbatim, they had a Henry Wu took the one locust thing and fixed it so that when it was introduced to the others, it would stop them from eating the crops and stuff. That's what they're trying to do with this thing. What? Oh. So, they do have scenes of Pazuzu trying to get to Reagan. Like, at one point, she tries to step off the balcony. Like, Pazuzu tries to get her to jump to her death. We hear a scream, and when Sharon runs in, she's just feeding the pigeons. What? I don't know. The ending. Okay, so Reagan leaves the Institute and finds Father Lamont, who's back in the States now. And they go to a hotel room and they do the flashy thingy. And he gets possessed by Pazuzu and lures her back to Washington. Yes, it was Washington, D.C., not New York. But they mentioned New York. Or, I mean, I thought it was Los Angeles. She was shooting a movie. So what am I supposed to think? She's shooting in D.C.? I didn't know that. Anyway, they go back to the house. But Nurse Ratched and Sharon follow. But there's obviously some kind of force stopping them, because every time they go somewhere, there's an accident or something stopping them in the way. And as soon as they get in the cab and get close enough, there's a crash. They crash into the gate. Sharon is then possessed and sets herself on fucking fire, like the lady at the beginning where she doesn't smile creepily. And because of this, Nurse Ratched doesn't go in the house. So Reagan has to talk. So an evil version of Reagan, that Wikipedia says the succubus, seduces Father Lamont. I must tell you here that Reagan, within the film's canon, is 16. Now, I wrongfully said Linda Blair was 12 in the last film. She was not. Because Linda Blair was 18 at this point, or 17 depending on when they filmed this. But she was 18 by the time the film came out. So she had to be at least 13 or 14 when filming the first one. Give or take 4 years, right? So, she was still young for her age. But here she's like 17, 18. depending on which, but that's still very young. And, where, and like I said, there is shots of her with makeup on, but it is a double with like a Reagan prosthetic, Linda Blair prosthetic on her face. My Father Lamont is able to overcome it, rip her heart out. Locusts come through before that, though, because locusts are a thing now, apparently. But Reagan's able to stop it by doing this. By the way, they added a serious retcon in here. Not only do they say that Reagan is psychic, yes, and that Kukuma was too, but that Father Merrin was actively seeking out psychic people. And that's what led him to Reagan. Bullshit. He just got a call that they needed an exorcism. I saw the first movie. And they try to make Father Merrin way more important than he was in the first film. We saw him at the beginning of the film, and we saw him towards the end of the film. That was it. Father Karras was the more important one. But either he didn't want to come back, or they couldn't figure out a way to bring him back, or the character back, at least. So, Father Merrin is the one we're following. And yes, I know we got a sense from the beginning of the first film that Father Merrin had some kind of connection to this. So that makes sense to go into the backstory. But they're making him way more important than he was by retconning that he purposely went to Reagan because he felt that psychic connection. No, he was just tasked by the Vatican to go do the exorcism. He was literally called in. I saw the movie. You're not going to retcon something we saw on screen, movie. Okay? Just trying to make that connection between the two characters. But, yeah. So the house is destroyed. But Reagan and Father Lamont survive. And Nurse Ratched leaves Reagan and Father Lamont's care. And a part of me would like to know where this went. And I bet you, those who saw this, it sucks. And they didn't like it. We're like, oh, Exorcist 3. I kind of want to know what happened. But Exorcist 3 has nothing to do with this. The Exorcist 3 is a direct sequel to the first one following Kinderman and a police investigation. And it's a million times better than this. I even go to say it's better than the first one. The first one's really good, though. But I like that one, too. But this is not. It's weird stuff at the beginning, boring middle, weird stuff at the end. All bundled into the what the fuckery that is The Exorcist 2. The Heretic, which I don't know where that comes from. It's got the same kind of effect on this movie as the Book of Shadows does on Blair Witch 2. Don't get me wrong, I still love Blair Witch 2. But there's no Book of Shadows. In fact, there was actually a Book of Shadows in one of the Pumpkinhead movies. I think it was 2. But that technically doesn't connect to anything either, because they ignore that one too. But yeah, this is... It didn't frustrate me enough to where I say it should fry in hell. But I will say that the Exorcist 2, The Heretic, is not worth your time. Just go from this to the third one, and depending on how I feel about the prequels, maybe not watch those either. You know what? I mentioned in my last review the ninth configuration. I forgot about that one. I also forgot there was a TV series that ran for 2 seasons. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. But so, what are your thoughts on Exorcist 2, The Heretic? Let me comment so much you like, share, and subscribe. Of course, next we will be looking at The Exorcist 3 and kind of diving into the backstory of this one as well. This one had a complicated production as well, so we shall see. We'll talk about that in the next one. Until then, Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'm Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.